Wondering about a love long past. There are moments in life that remain etched in your memory like delicate frost patterns on a winter window, beautiful, intricate, and destined to fade with the warming sun. Or so I thought. I found myself standing at the precipice of 50, surrounded by the life I had carefully constructed, a cozy Victorian home just outside of Asheville, a successful small bookshop downtown, and photographs of smiling nieces and nephews adorning my walls. By society's standards, I had created a good life. A full life, even. But on quiet evenings when the North Carolina air hung heavy with jasmine and memories, I would sometimes find my fingers tracing the outline of a silver locket I kept hidden in my jewelry box. A tangible reminder of the path not taken. His name was Daniel. I met him during my junior year abroad in England, at a small university in the Cotswolds where the buildings were older than my entire country. I was studying English literature, determined to immerse myself in the land of Austen and the Brontes. Daniel was a local boy studying architecture, with dark curly hair that fell across his forehead and eyes the color of brewing tea. We met in the university library. How fitting for two souls who cherished stories. I had dropped a stack of books, and as we both knelt to gather them, our hands brushed. It sounds terribly cliché now, but I felt something in that moment, like a current passing between us. Middlemarch, North and South, Jane Eyre, he said, examining my selections with a crooked smile. Either you're a glutton for punishment or you have excellent taste. Perhaps a bit of both, I replied, and when he laughed, I knew I wanted to hear that sound again. Our courtship unfolded among ancient stone walls and rolling green hills. We spent weekends exploring hidden villages, eating scones with clotted cream in tiny tea rooms, and walking for hours through misty countryside. During the week, we'd meet at a coffee shop equidistant from our respective departments, where he would sketch buildings in his leather-bound notebook while I analyzed poetry. I want to create spaces that feel like this, he told me one afternoon, gesturing to a page of his notebook where he'd drawn a sunlit courtyard. Places that feel like a warm embrace. By spring, we were in love. Deeply, impossibly in love in the way that perhaps only happens when you're 21 and the world seems designed for your happiness. On my birthday, he gave me the silver locket, inside of which he'd placed a tiny sketch of us, sitting beneath an oak tree. "So you'll always have a piece of England with you," he said. As my year abroad neared its end, we made plans. I would return to America to finish my degree, and he would complete his studies in England. We'd write letters, actual handwritten letters, because we both loved the romance of it. After graduation, I would return to England, or perhaps he would come to America. The details seemed inconsequential, our love would find a way. But life, as it so often does, had other ideas. My mother fell ill during my senior year. Not gravely, but enough that she needed help managing the family home while undergoing treatments. My father had passed years before, and as an only child, the responsibility fell squarely on my shoulders. I delayed my return to England by 6 months, then a year. Daniel and I wrote faithfully at first. His letters arrived scented with the particular mustiness of Old English paper, filled with architectural sketches and promises of patience. I wrote back with quotes from my favorite poems and updates on my mother's improving health. But gradually, the letters became less frequent. A month would pass, then 2. The distance stretched between us like a thread pulled too tight. We tried to speak on the phone, but international calls were expensive, and the awkward delays and echoes on the line seemed to symbolize our growing disconnect. Then came the letter that changed everything. Daniel had been offered a prestigious position with an architectural firm in Singapore. A 3-year contract. An opportunity he couldn't refuse. "Come with me," he wrote. "We'll explore Asia together. Start fresh." I stared at those words until they blurred before my eyes. My mother was better but still needed me. My newly completed degree had landed me a promising position at a publishing house in Charlotte. Singapore seemed as distant as the moon. "I can't," I replied. Not now. But maybe in 3 years. We both knew what those words really meant. His last letter was brief. He wished me well. Said he would always cherish our time together. Enclosed was a pressed leaf from the oak tree where we had spent so many afternoons. I placed it in the locket beside our sketch and tucked both away, believing that chapter of my life had closed forever. The years passed. I built my career, eventually opening my own bookshop. I dated occasionally. There was even a brief engagement in my 30s that dissolved amicably when we both realized we were settling rather than soaring. I traveled when I could, though never to England. Some doors are better left unopened, I told myself. And then, 27 years after I'd said goodbye to Daniel, I received an email that stopped my heart. I don't know if this will reach you, it began. But if you are the Elizabeth Collins who studied at Thornfield University in 1995, I've been hoping to reconnect. I'll be in Asheville next month for an architectural conference. Would you consider meeting for coffee? It was signed simply Daniel Porter. I sat motionless before my computer screen, reading and rereading those words until I had them memorized. My hands shook as I typed and deleted and retyped my reply a dozen times before finally settling on, yes, I would like that very much. We arranged to meet at a small cafe near the Botanical Gardens. Neutral territory that offered an easy escape if needed. I arrived early, my stomach fluttering with nerves I hadn't felt since my 20s. I wore a blue dress and, after much deliberation, the silver locket. When he walked through the door, time performed a curious accordion-like collapse. He was older, of course. His dark curls now peppered with silver, laugh lines framing his eyes. But unmistakably Daniel. He paused just inside the entrance, scanning the room until his gaze landed on me. The smile that spread across his face made my heart leap. "Elizabeth," he said, sliding into the chair across from me. "You look wonderful." "So do you," I replied, meaning it completely. "Singapore must have agreed with you." "It did," he nodded. "Though I've been back in England for nearly 20 years now." We talked for hours, our coffee growing cold as we filled in the vast spaces of our separate lives. He had married briefly in his late 30s, divorced amicably after 5 years with no children. He had designed buildings across Asia and Europe, eventually returning to the Cotswolds to establish his own firm specializing in sustainable architecture. I told him about my bookshop, my travels through the American Southwest, my collection of first edition American poetry. We carefully skirted around the edges of regret, focusing instead on the lives we had built. As afternoon faded into evening, he gestured to my locket. "You kept it," he said softly. I nodded, opening it to reveal the faded sketch and the pressed leaf, now brown and fragile with age. "I kept everything," I admitted. His hand covered mine across the table. "I never stopped wondering," he said. "About us. About what might have been." "Neither did I whispered. We walked through the botanical gardens afterward, the spring flowers blooming around us as we cautiously, tenderly, began to learn each other anew. He was in Asheville for a week. We spent every possible moment together, talking late into the night, sharing meals, exploring the mountains I had come to love. On his last evening, standing on the balcony of my Victorian home with the Blue Ridge Mountains silhouetted against the twilight sky, he turned to me. "I'm designing a project in Charleston," he said. "It would mean several months in America, traveling back and forth." "That sounds promising," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Elizabeth," he took both my hands in his. "I don't want to lose you again. I know we're not the same people we were at 21. We've lived whole lives apart. But I still feel that current when I'm with you. Do you feel it too?" I did. Beneath the weight of years and separate journeys, that essential connection remained, perhaps even deeper now that we understood the preciousness of time. "What are you proposing?" I asked. "A beginning," he said simply. No grand promises yet, just possibilities. Letters again. Emails this time. Visits when we can manage them. Getting to know each other in our current lives, not just in our memories. I thought about my bookshop, about the life I had built that I genuinely loved. I thought about the silver locket and the years I had spent wondering. And I thought about second chances, how rare and unexpected they could be. Yes, I said. I'd like that very much. 3 years have passed since that reunion. Daniel divides his time between England and America now, his firm having opened a small office in Asheville focused on historical renovation. I still run my bookshop, though I've trained a manager who allows me to spend several months each year in the Cotswolds. We've created a life between 2 countries, 2 homes, 2 careers that we've spent decades building. It isn't always easy. We still argue occasionally about which side of the road is correct for driving, and whether tea should be made in a pot or a mug. There are times when the ocean between us feels impossibly wide. But we've learned that love doesn't always follow a straight path. Sometimes it meanders, taking detours and scenic routes before finding its way home. Last summer, Daniel took me back to the university where we first met. The library had been renovated, but the oak tree still stood, spreading its ancient branches over the lawn where we once spent lazy afternoons. "Do you remember what you told me about architecture?" I asked him as we sat beneath its shade. "That you wanted to create spaces that felt like a warm embrace?" He nodded, his fingers intertwined with mine. "That's what this feels like," I said. "Coming back to you after all this time. Like finally finding the space where I belong." He didn't speak, just pressed his lips to my palm and held me close as the English summer breeze rustled through the leaves above us. I don't know what the future holds for us. At our age, we're both keenly aware of life's impermanence and unpredictability. But I've learned that sometimes the most beautiful gardens grow along the paths we never expected to take, and the most profound loves are those that find their way back to us when we least expect them. The silver locket still hangs around my neck, but now it contains something new alongside our old sketch and the pressed leaf. A tiny key that Daniel gave me last Christmas, to the cottage he bought in the Cotswolds with a garden view and bookshelves built into every wall. "For whenever you're ready," he said. I'm thinking I might be ready very soon. So if you find yourself wondering about a love long past, or a path not taken, remember my story. Remember that time can be both a divider and a healer, and that sometimes, if you're very fortunate, life offers second chances more beautiful than you could have imagined the first time around. The greatest love stories, after all, are rarely the ones that follow a straight line. They're the ones that wander and circle back, that weather seasons of separation and silence, and still find their way home in the end.